screen? Am I
Mhm.
sharing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the welcome? Okay,
Yep.
great. So we're gonna have the presentation and the QA starting at 7, and then part of the Q&A is part, is part of her presentation. So hopefully about 8 o'clock, we can do a door prize drawing. And since there's so little of us, we'll see, got a big chance. Okay, and then we'll do some closing. We'll talk about some things that are coming up and announcements and all. But if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to send it in the chat. And because it's small, it depends on, Paula's where she's at in her talk, if she wants to answer it then, or we can wait till the end. So just put your question in there just while you're thinking about it. Or if you want to raise your hand in the participation thing, I'm sure everybody's familiar with Zoom by now, but if not, just let me know. Okay, so I wanted to make sure you knew all the places you could connect with us. And so we have a Facebook page, we have a LinkedIn page, and we have Slack where we try to keep the conversation going all the time. And not a lot of people are in there, but we go in and out of it, and somebody's monitoring it all the time. And we also have our website, and we are actually working on a brand new redesign right now, and hopefully it'll be ready by the end of this month or so. We're trying to get it going. It's being developed, and she's not able to make it tonight. She had something come up, so but we're excited to see that, and we're always looking for volunteers if you want to help with any of that. And then Paula will talk about her presentation. So I will stop sharing at this point, and I think, Paula, you're not going to share anything, right? You're just going to...
I have a couple things, but
okay,
they will be brief. Yeah, they'll be brief.
All right, well, we can go ahead and get started then. So
okay,
take it away. Welcome, Paula.
Thanks. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is share the Slack chat invite. Okay. So it's over there in your chat. But don't chat over there, chat here. But that's just so you can copy it and have it for later. Okay, so there are no slides tonight. That is just not my mojo. I'm old school, and it intimidated me, to be quite honest. And so I have these. All right, so we're talking about languages of UX tonight, and I could spend an evening talking about all the different kinds of words that the business leaders use, or designers, or researchers, psychologists, scrum masters, product owners, experience owners, and on and on and on it goes. But that's really not what's most important when it comes to learning the languages of UX. And so I wanted to share with you the principles behind that, because once you have those down and once you understand why and then how, then it will be much easier for you. So I'm going to start out talking about Adam Smith. I don't know if any of you have heard about him. He's considered the father of modern day economics. And in 1776 in Scotland, he published a book that was a culmination of 10 years of notes and observations that he compiled while working in business. Really detailed notes about masters and laborers and royalty and mercantile and the models that they followed over in Scotland and across Europe. And he realized that things needed to change. And so in his book, he introduced something called the division of labor. And it was the first time in written history that we know of, maybe the Chinese did it, or over in East Asia. Western history doesn't document that stuff very well. But it was the very first time that division of labor concept came up. And he used the manufacture of nails as an example. And the idea really stuck. Karl Marx read his books. Alexander Hamilton read his stuff. And both of them come from completely different parts of the rainbow of politics. And clearly, Adam Smith has affected billions of people, and he's affecting us all today. Can you imagine what kind of car you'd be driving if one person had to make the whole thing? We wouldn't have air conditioning. We probably wouldn't have roll-up windows by now. We wouldn't be able to take it to the dealer, and it would be a whole different experience. So the division of labor also creates other divisions. A coder would say other divs. It's a HTML tag to throw in a little code speak. It's a div. So we have lots of divisions in our work life these days. We've got bosses, designers, researchers, all the different roles that I mentioned earlier. And the divisions are so commonly experienced that comic strips like Dilbert and TV shows like The Office like to poke fun at them, and we laugh because we know it's real. One of the challenges in UX, where you might not see an office, because in the office they're all pretty much administrators in one way, shape, or form, except for the boss or the security guy. But in UX, we have to think very, very differently when we're approaching a role. A researcher does not think like a designer. If a researcher happens to design, they understand how a designer has to think. But if a person has been a researcher only all along, they're not going to think the same way that coder does, or this CEO. It doesn't happen. We're dealing with unique problems that our piece of the labor pie is supposed to solve. And with that comes challenges. And so we have a problem, and that is we don't know what the other roles do. Often, sometimes we do, but often we don't. And then the other part is, if we don't really know their workflow, and if we don't really know what's important for their deliverables, then how can we communicate with them about it? How can we help the team run better? Well, when we don't communicate very well about it, there ends up being feelings like being dismissed because you weren't understood. Or maybe you're the one dismissing and you don't realize it, and you're making other people feel like they've been sidelined. And it's really just an expression of misunderstanding, that you didn't really hear what they were trying to say. So in UX, we have a habit of admiring problems and looking at them from a million different angles. So that's what we're going to do tonight. Together in UX, we work on all kinds of deliverables. And I didn't hear that word until I started going to UX meetings. I got deliverable, deliverable, deliverable. Is that like delivering a contract in real estate? What is that, right? So over time, I found out that a deliverable is a persona. A deliverable is a journey map. A deliverable is a user research report. It's a million different things. And it depends on the role who has to produce the deliverable. So our deliverables that designers and researchers and data scientists and scrum masters and all these different pieces, all these different roles, the deliverables come together and they merge to create more deliverables that ultimately end up in front of CEOs or marketer executives. So, but the purpose is that we're all trying to serve the user. We are user experience people. So with that in mind, I'd like to turn a corner and talk about communication. There's a lot of different parts to communication. A lot of you probably already know this. I'm singing to the choir. There's nonverbal, like that's nonverbal. How a person walks, how a person dances, how they tilt their head or shrug their shoulders, or if their shoulders are tight, or if they're sitting back like this, or they're up like that and going like this. You have a different impression, right? And so there's a lot of nonverbal that goes on. In fact, some researchers say it's like 75% or more of all the communication signals that we take in. Most of the message coming in is nonverbal. It says a lot about text, doesn't it? So there's also verbal. There's the words, there's tone of voice, how loud we talk or how soft we talk. And then there's silence. Silence is communication too. How we breathe. If we took in a big breath, you know, all of that, or if we're holding our breath because we're anxious, all of that sends a message. And sometimes if our words don't match our body language, people pick up on it and they get real uncomfortable and they don't know why. The words that we don't use send a message. And how we put the words in what order we do use them sends a message. Then there's the challenge that we have nowadays that we did not have 100 years. Well, we did. There's synchronous communication, like right now, we're all together on this channel. We're not all talking at the same time, but we are here in the same moment. We could all be sitting in this room together, but we are together. It's called synchronous communication. A live telephone call, a live Zoom call, a walk through the park, sitting at dinner with someone, synchronous. It's at the same time. Asynchronous communication involves old school letter writing. Give it to the Pony Express and you might not hear back for a year. Or back in the 80s when long distance was still like 10 cents a minute, 40 cents a minute, you might not hear back in a few months if you wrote someone a letter. Maybe they'd write back right away. You just didn't know if they would or not. A lot happens between the time you wrote the letter and the time you get the letter back. And now we have text, voicemail, social media messages, loads and loads of asynchronous tools. And because we're used to getting most of our cues and messaging from nonverbal or tone of voice or pacing, missing a lot of the message when we rely on asynchronous communication, especially if it's just written. It creates challenge, gaps, misunderstandings. I think we've seen jokes where text is, people up over text and the person who sent the text never meant to break up, but the other person thinks they broke up and all that drama. So the same thing can happen at work. In other words, teams, well, to give examples, the developer doesn't understand why the designer arrived at the design that she did. And he doesn't understand if he hasn't really gotten to know any designers. He doesn't understand if he graduated from a boot camp web developers. He doesn't understand that that designer spent a lot of time creating in her mind a merging together of the branding vision, the tone of voice for the brand, the CEO's constraints, the constraints of the brand in terms of color and font and other styles that have already been defined. And then also what is the next list of to-do items for a design. So and the research, the latest research and anecdotes, which are stories from users, comments, survey results, things like that. The designer pulls all of this together and hands it to the developer. Well, maybe she doesn't understand a developer's workflow and she thinks her first page is going to come out first, but it doesn't. It comes out last and she gets frustrated. And then we've got, well, how do we pull our presentation together for middle management? So they go in and they're invited to a big meeting and they're allowed to be there and they present their message, but you can just tell that it falls flat. And then they find out later that middle management thinks of designers as paint and carpet, not an integral part of what makes profit for the company. They're just paint and carpet for residential, digital real estate. So in the real estate world, you've got brick and mortar, and here we have pixels and screen. And then we've got bias and ego. So that makes it even harder when people are afraid of being wrong, which never works in user experience profession. It never works to be afraid of being wrong. And when people are afraid of being wrong, especially in management, then all the people on the UX team have to figure out how to get stuff done, navigating that person's ego. Another way ego comes across is they like to use their UX language to show how much jargon they know. And I have an acronym for this. It's called Acronym Superiority Syndrome, ASS. So anyway, yeah, bias or ego can create a lot of drama and inefficiency. And the drama on the inside of us, the internal drama, is that we feel disrespected, dismissed, sidelined, a little bit bewildered. What could I possibly have done better? How can I get this point across? How can I communicate that this is a real need for our user? And then finally, you end up wanting to leave the job. External drama is data-driven decisions convert into ego-driven decisions. Gossip. And the gossip might even be about things that aren't even true, because the person who's gossiping didn't get the right message and jumped to conclusions. And so now the gossiper is tattling about things that aren't even true. So then you've got team disruption. Another result externally of external drama is poor reviews, because we are connecting poorly with the people who give us our performance reviews. And we don't know how to create that connection. We're anxious, or we feel intimidated, or because we don't understand their language or their culture in middle management, and we're down here in the craftsmanship area, we don't connect. We don't even try. We're introverted. That's our excuse. And so we're overlooked for the promotion. We don't get good reviews. And then when we are laid off, instead of someone else who did connect well, we put them down on our reference list, and we get surprised because we knew that we did a good job. We tried really hard. We worked really hard. We put out, we made deadline, and they didn't give us a good reference. What gives? So what are the languages of UX? Probably ready for that, right? The languages of UX are sets of jargon that exist within each practice, each role for the overall group of professionals that create UX products. Researchers have a language. Developers have jargon. They have lots of jargon. They have all the languages that they deal with, like HTML, CSS, PHP, React.js, jQuery, JavaScript, Java, and they're not the same. And then they've got object-oriented programming, and what's the DOM, really? And so they have loads, and they probably have more jargon than the business part of it. So, and they also have a culture. Developers have a distinctly different culture from designers. If you go to their meetups that are just for developers and meetups that are just for designers, they will have a completely different vibe. You must go. And that really is the sum of how to describe languages of UX. It is the jargon and the culture that exists predominantly within each role. I'm not sure about what Scrum Masters are in terms of culture. I'm not sure exactly about product owners. I'm not sure about experience owners. They have some of those at USAA. I'm not really sure what their role is because I haven't worked with one, but it does exist. It's kind of similar to the medical profession where I know all of you have heard this. There's a doctor. He walks into, you've either seen it on TV or you've experienced it yourself. The doctor walks in and he's talking to the nurse, and there's words you've never heard before in your whole life, like esophagogastroduodenoscopy. That is one word with more than 20 syllables. And so they're talking doses and tools and drugs. And did you know that every drug has 3 names? And so then the doctor turns to the patient and says basically the same thing, but in a completely different vocabulary. And depending on the education level of the patient or where the patient comes from, the doctor will adjust vocabulary a lot or a little, depending on who is listening, who is in that bed, also depending on their mental status, whether or not they are alert or not. And so that is an example of how one person can be in the same room and talk to this person, and they're using all of their industry jargon. They're saving time because they're using EGD instead of esophagogastroduodenoscopy. And when they talk to the patient, they say, well, we're going to do this procedure where we put a camera down your esophagus and your stomach and into your duodenum because that's where we're going to see if anything's wrong. They don't say, we're going to do an EGD or, esophagogastroduodenoscopy. No, they don't say that. Same thing happens in UX. So if we learn the languages, then we'll be able to pivot just like the doctor does. We can save time in the role that we work, and we can also save time when we're trying to connect with other people, like a designer trying to connect with a developer, trying to understand their workflow. If we have the vocabulary built in to our minds, if we've been practicing it, if we've been going to meetings, then it's so much easier. It's more efficient, it's more effective, and there's a lot less drama if we can communicate. Work gets harder if we don't know the languages of UX. We have a lack of empathy. We tend to think that when things go wrong between two roles or in a deliverable that two people or three people or a team and another team we're working on, well, we were right. We have an automatic bias. It's psychologically proven that we will have a sense of rightness because of our group. We approve of our group naturally more than we will approve of the other group. And so this sense of rightness comes in, and there becomes this little tension, and people start feeling awkward and afraid of talking to each other, and then we end up siloed. And what that means is locked away in our little ivory towers, and we're not able to get back together and really create something. A second problem is you're not on the same page. So even when you are together in the same room at a big meeting, you're talking, and they're hearing something completely different. I don't know if any of you have been public speakers on a regular basis. My husband had a job for a long time where he spoke every single week, and people would come up to him and all of them would get a different message. We have to take that for granted, that when we speak, people are going to hear different messages. And one important point is if we can't figure out our own selves sometimes, like why we do what we do, or, well, I want to do it like this, but I end up doing like that. If we can't figure that out about ourselves sometimes, then how can we possibly lay claim to the fact that we know it about that other person over there? We've got them down. We know their game. No, we cannot. We must ask. So how do we learn the languages of UX? How do we create a better experience for the users among us, right? So we're working so hard for the user out there, but let's turn and face each other and see the users among us. So we do it for the user out there. I'd like to introduce us to the idea that we practice good UX for each other, with each other. We start with the user. Have you ever written down what your job needs from someone else? Have you ever asked someone else, what is the most important thing you need from me, from my role? And how do you need it? When do you need it? We have all these assumptions and they're all never really said or spoken. So it's really good if we get that down. Gathercontent.com said this in a webinar over the summer. Content design is answering a user's need in the best way for the user to consume it. So we have deliverables that we're providing to other people who are trying to collaborate with us on a project. We need to be able to present them in the best way so that they can consume them. I know that you hear what I'm saying. So Content design, we think of that as something that we do for the user, for the website, but really when we are putting together our deliverables, when we are passing them off, when we are sending emails or calling, that is content design. And we are answering a user's need, whether or not we know it. And it is landing some way, whether or not they understand what we're actually trying to say, if we said anything at all. Another thing that we need to do is iterate forward. The thing about people is that we're not static. We're always changing for the good, for the bad, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Oh, I lost 10 pounds, gained 10 pounds. You know, it's a never ending thing with us. We're always changing, and that happens with teams too. The project changes. Someone got sick. Someone's kid got sick. Someone's taking a class and learning new skills, and it's having an impact. Teams are always changing. So we have to test our assumptions. If someone says something and they use words that we don't know, it's on us to ask, haven't heard that word yet. Can you tell me what that is? And if you sense when you're talking to someone that you know you're not talking to another designer, you say, oh, a persona is an explanation of the best ideal customer or a typical user for this website. Oh, okay, thanks. And maybe they were new, maybe they were an intern and they never knew. So it's just considerate. Default to open. And what that means is try to build a practice that has the workflow open. People are beginning to understand how coders work, why they put the headphones on and just get in the zone. They learn what the Scrum Master needs. That's not in my purview. I don't really know, but I know some Scrum Masters. Haven't asked them yet. So we need to ask, and then we need to make our handoffs transparent and consistent so that our team knows that something's ready for them. If we don't actually tell them, how will they know? Unless we have a system where they just know that they can go look. Okay, when it's ready, I know it'll be there. And so they can check, they can just keep checking. But it has to be transparent. It has to default to open. And then what was the last one? Yes, always ask. So let's break it down for groups and individuals. When we're dealing with language and work and people who are together a lot, culture happens. It just does. We don't think about it, but it does. Culture is a learned patterns of perception, values, and behaviors that are consistent and adopted dynamically. They do shift and change a little bit, but most of the people in the group practice them. And it's assumed that this is the way we do things. So teams have cultures, companies have cultures, departments have cultures, parts of a city have unique cultures. And if we can design for users and we can create culture with a brand like Coca-Cola or Abercrombie and Fitch or Nike, then we can create and intend the cultures for our teams. So instead of just designing with brand tone and creating a culture for users or for business, let's turn and look at each other and say, what do we want? What do we want to be the way for our group and for our team? A lot of that depends on the language that we use and how we pass things off and whether or not we are consistent. One of the things that we did in real estate, I didn't realize I was doing UX back then. I didn't know UX was a thing. But we designed our customer experiences from front to finish. From the moment of discovery, we would track how did they find out about us. All the way through to 2 years after the deal's done, we're still popping by and dropping off little presents and saying, hey, got any referrals? How you doing? Hope you're doing great. How's that 2-year-old boy doing now? Are you doing all right? And so we actually got together at 9 o'clock every Thursday and rehearsed our scripts and went over data, went over the latest feedback from clients after the closing. And if we saw that we needed to change, we would change right there. And we would change together, and we would change the scripts and rehearse them out loud together. It was our way of creating a culture in our company that was open and transparent and consistent for all of the buyers, no matter who they got on the phone. And it was also a design of the customer's experience, as well as the design of the team's experience. There was another team that I worked with, and we transferred everything from paper to digital. So we designed a digital experience that was 100% paperless for our clients and for our team. It took a lot of work, but it's still holding up, I think 10 years later after it was built. Martin Luther King is a good example of someone who's speaking to large audiences. And I went to the library many years ago, about 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and checked out a full CD set of all of his major speeches. And I listened to each one from the beginning of the CD to the end. It's like 4 or 5 CDs. And what I noticed was that he defined the way constantly, because he was speaking to different groups all over the country, and we could say that that is different departments in a company. And so he's defining the culture for the movement, right? And he's telling them over and over and over again, no, 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 we are not going to be violent. We are going to be dignified. We are going to be controlled. We are going to be respectful. We are going to be persistent. And we are going to be very, very strategic. And if you ever get a chance to listen to Martin Luther King from the front to the finish, all of his speeches in a row, it's very enlightening, inspiring, humbling. Yeah. So he really modeled a lot after Gandhi. So Gandhi taught him the way, and then he passed that on. So if we've learned good cultural moves from companies that we've worked at, we can bring it with us to another company and suggest it or model it in our behavior or in how we communicate with email. We can change the culture of our groups. As an individual, we can practice giving good UX. Give good UX is a phrase by Joe Natoli. He has a website called Give Good UX, and he claims that he's trained over 180,000 students. And he's very active on LinkedIn. I love that phrase, give good UX, because whether you are in the cash register line at HEB or at home or at work, you are giving an experience to other people. So instead of just always focusing on the user out there on the other end of our product, let's remember that we have users right next to us, the desk right next to us. Let's see, I have a note here. Oh yeah, an individual example. I was in Long Island, and I was visiting from Michigan, and I was introduced to my mother's favorite waitress. And she just could not get my name, Paula Schuler, Paula Schuler. What? And finally I said, Paula Schuler, Paula Schuler. Oh, Paula Schuler, nice to meet you. Do you like your coffee? Yeah. And so she was able to get it after I changed the accent to match hers. And so, Sherry, if you don't mind, I'd like to show something to everyone.
You should be able to share.
Okay. Someone very graciously gave this to me this week. Love it. Perfect example. Now I want you to listen very, oops, that's not supposed to be there. Very, very closely. She has American English, but she's visiting Korea. She's a K-pop music star. So listen.
What a wonderful world라고. What a wonderful world.
Okay, so what happened was her answer to his question is, what a wonderful world. Let's listen to it again.
Wonderful world라고. What a wonderful world. 이거 velvet.
레드 벨벳?
Yes, red velvet.
뭐라고요?
Red velvet.
레드 벌벳이요?
Red velvet. Wow.
뭐라고요?
Red velvet.
레드 벨벳.
정답.
정답 레디?
Russian?
뭐야?
Ruin?
뭐라고요?
Russian? 정답 Russian.
러시아요?
Russian.
러시아 룰렛.
Okay, so she has American English, but when she's in Korea, she has to add a Korean accent so that they can understand her. So I just love that. I'll include it in the email that follows this so that y'all can use it somewhere if you want. It's really cute. Yeah, so I'm gonna give it back over to you. How do I do this? Pause share?
Oh, just stop sharing.
Okay, there it is.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so that's an example of how we have to change what we're saying or how we're saying something so that someone else can understand, and it comes in unexpected times sometimes. Okay, so how do we learn the languages of UX? I'd like to suggest that we follow the example of people who are learning English. It's really just that simple. We make it a big deal in our minds, but it's not. If we frame it in the overall picture of learning languages, well, we've got people all around us who are trying to learn English. Well, we don't have to learn English. All we have to learn is another set of vocabulary words. That's it. We can do that. I take my hat off to English language learners who come here from who knows where across the ocean and land themselves at a university and try to learn university level classes in a second language that they barely know. It just blows my mind. I have so much respect for them. So when we put it in that context, what we have to do to learn the vocabulary or the work styles of the other roles in UX is not a big deal. It just takes a little effort. So ELL is the acronym that school teachers in San Antonio use to describe English language learning students. So I'm going to apply that acronym. I'm not using ESL because ESL actually refers to the language, English as a second language. ELL refers to the person, English language learner. So we're going to do ELL. So E is for engage. And what I mean by that is actually go, okay? There's a good example of this, someone who did some user design work, is a company named Sanergy. S as in Sam, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, ERGY, Sanergy. And you can find them online. And they actually went into one of the worst ghettos in all of Kenya, big, huge, massive ghetto. And they tried to find a solution to bring to the people an option for a waterless toilet that they could afford. And they spent iteration after iteration after iteration. They dealt with taboos like it's in their house. No, to be in the house, or can we carry it or roll it? There were things that they'd been scammed before, so the current product couldn't look like that. It had to be affordable for people in a ghetto. And people actually walked into ghettos and endured the smells and the environment to create this for them. And now today, there are people earning a living, delivering sanitary toilets to the ghetto where there is no running water. And people have a safer lifestyle, and they have it in a way that they can afford, and they will actually adopt it. So user experience design is one of the best things on the planet because it helps us serve populations in a way that were completely overlooked before. So you have to engage and get out of your comfort zone, walk through the ghetto, so to speak. It's well, maybe that's a terrible metaphor, but go to the meetings, go to meetup.com and find a web dev meeting, web developers, software developers. Go look at, find out what's so good about Python. Why is Python different from PHP? These are two basic languages that are used to build the dynamic stuff that pulls all the data up to the screen. And then listen to meetings between business people who are talking about finance, who are talking about goals and how to pull a profit. Because that's when you start getting into KPIs and what's OKR?
OKRs, yes.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Objective key results.
Yeah, objective key result. And can you rattle off some of those things that you learned when you took that class with Ryan? The methods that they do to solve problems?
Yeah, it's this was a design to business language class. Basically me learning how as a researcher to convey my findings to the business so that they would understand it better, and using things like SWOT analysis and scorecards and KPIs, ROIs, OKRs. And he gave me all these different tools to use so that I could translate my findings into a language that they understood in a very short amount of time, because they could digest it when it's put in their language. So that was very, very valuable.
And he taught you how to do that at the beginning of your talk, probably, instead of at the end. So you're
right. We practiced it.
Right. So at the beginning of your talk, you're giving them the information that really matters the most to them. And towards the end of your talk, you're giving the support material. Instead of, if I was a researcher, I would go, oh, all this wonderful data, look. And here's my conclusion at the end. You know,
right.
but for the purpose of a business person's interest, to answer the business person's need, you're actually putting up front what they think is important, and then all the goodies and the candy is at the bottom, right?
Right. They want the answer first and then the justification after.
Right. So there's an example of understanding what somebody else really, really needs from you and being able to adapt to that. Even though naturally you'd probably put the research first, because that's where we have the most fun. Another thing that we need to do is the ELL. So L is for listen. There's a Chinese character called Ting, T-I-N-G. And if you will Google T-I-N-G listening, Ting listening, it's like a really deep listening method. And one of the concepts involved in that is you actually stop and prepare yourself to receive a message. And it's a fascinating thing if you want to go Google it. I'll have some of that in the resources. And of course, there are 3 levels of listening. There's the kind where you're listening to the voice in your head and you notice the ticking clock and your phone is distracting you and you're thinking about what's for dinner tonight. That's the broadcast listener. There's the attentive listener who actually engaged and taking notes and paying attention and asking, what did you mean by that word? Because I haven't heard that word yet. And so what I hear you saying is, we're going to do this project over the next 3 days with our deliverable to you, including points 2, 3, and 4 by Friday. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I said. Great. And then we have the third level of learning, which is called universal. And it's that kind of universal listening. It's the kind of listening that you have where you walk away just energized and you've been eye to eye, completely involved. You lost track of time and you're just like pumped when you're done, right? Because you really totally get what you were talking about together and you asked questions and explored the subject and really got into it. And that would be called universal listening. So we're going to move on to learn. That's very unique for everyone. So when you go to UX meetups or you watch webinars online, you may find that if you type all your notes, you will not retain as much as if you handwrite them. Or if you distract yourself, it just won't stick as much than if you actually just really, really listen. If you have to do something else at the same time, like you're a fidgeter, my son can't sit still without a Rubik's. He had to have a Rubik's Cube in his hand. If you have to do something like that, one of my habits is I embroidery. So if I'm watching a webinar and I'm not really having to take notes, I'll embroidery, I'll pay attention to how they're talking, or I'll listen to words that I haven't heard before, or new contexts that they put them in. And then the final challenge is the conflict. Yeah, that one is no fun. And there can be a lot of conflict in working on a project. My dad used to come home spitting nails. He was an aircraft engineer. And, but there are some solutions for that. I have a book, and it's called The Coward's Guide to Conflict. I've had this book on my shelf at least 2 years, and I picked it up about 6 weeks ago. I wished I had picked it up 2 years ago after I bought it. It has, it's kind of like a workbook, and it's so easy to read, and he talks about the 7 different ways that we respond to conflict. And he gives examples, and he gives ways to improve it. He gives you phrases. He helps you work through things that you're struggling with. And I just really, really recommend it. If you have trouble with conflict, you don't know how to approach conflict, you find yourself shutting down, just do it. Anxiety, last topic. So about 20% of United States adults, 18 and up, not counting teenagers, qualify as having diagnosable anxiety. In other words, the anxiety is so intense that it interferes with their work. Now, when we're designing for users, we keep users in mind who might have blindness or they've lost a hand. But when we're looking at our teams, usually we're not dealing with that, but we are dealing with anxiety and we just don't know it. It's either in us or it's in them. And we need to remember that at any given time, anxiety is in 1 of 5 of the people in the room you're with. Probably somebody on this session has anxiety issues that are actually intense enough to be diagnosed and treated by a professional. And along with that is imposter syndrome. And there's an imposter expert named Valerie Young, Dr. Valerie Young, and she said up to 70% of adults will experience imposter syndrome. 70%. And she said imposter syndrome is where you fail to internalize your successes or your achievements, your skills. You just discount it. Oh, that was just luck. Or you diminish it in some way and you end up feeling like a fake. It's a real problem, and I'll be sending you some resources for that as well. So what are the benefits of learning languages of UX? Career mobility, relief, less anxiety, better relationships, better references when you do get laid off for coronavirus. So much stress can be relieved if we have an interest in and learn the languages of the people that we work with and learn their workflows and learn their processes and learn what they need from us. Learn how to pass things off, learn how to write better emails, learn how to write fewer emails, and in general, just learn how to care or show that we care more effectively. So with that, we'll just open it up to Q.
Wait, I want to go back to the acronym. So,
Acronym?
the acronym,
I liked it too.
Which one?
the acronym. Don't be an ass.
Yeah, we came up with that last week, didn't we? It was acronym superiority syndrome. Yeah.
So don't be an ass.
Yeah, don't be mean. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll open it up to questions. You're welcome to turn off your, unmute yourself and ask questions to Paula, or you can type it into the chat and I'll ask it for you if you'd like. Any comments, questions?
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
So with UX UI design, like let's say you're applying for a job, and it's like different candidates, and the thing is, like, let's say you have similar experience, and it involves a lot of skills, right? Like UX, UI. Of course, it depends on the role, perhaps, but I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, in your opinion, I guess, what do you think is more important? Like, just having more, I guess, empathy or better user experience, like in terms of research, or is UI more important? Like, I guess how does one differentiate themselves from someone else, especially when they start out in UX UI design?
So are you shooting to be a designer or a researcher, or what role are you shooting for?
I'm not exactly sure at the moment, because I know I'm just starting out. But in terms of like interest, I'm leaning more towards UI. I just feel like UX is more broader, so I think in terms of opportunity, I think that's easier. So it's kind of conflicting.
Well, in conversations with recruiters over the last year, it's become apparent that many of the companies, because they are realizing user experience is important, and especially because Google announced that they would be adding user experience to the criteria for their search results, companies are going, oh, I need a UX designer, and I need one now, and I need one with this many years experience. And if you look at the job descriptions, we have a recording of a portfolio workshop on our YouTube channel. And she is a hiring manager for UX, and she's hired teams across the United States. And she talks about how you can look at the job description and determine whether or not that company understands UX. And you can look at the job description and learn how young or mature that UX team is. And by young and mature, Sherry, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, you can hear me, right? Okay. So just to give you an example, I've been in a company that I was the only researcher. There were 2 designers, and we reported to a person who didn't know anything about UX. That would be a very immature or very young UX team that's just starting out. Another company that I am hoping to get my foot in the door with have a full system. There's a VP of research, there's a director of research, and then they've got them split out and in different teams, and there's about 30 people on the staff. So that's a very mature, they have their processes and their systems down. They already know what they expect from the deliverables and the type of people they want to work with and all of that. So that's the difference between a young and a very mature type of UX space. How many designers to researchers, things like that. And you're going to find all different levels. Sometimes it's better to work with, if you're new to it, you want to go in as an intern or get some help from a more mature company. But once you get your sea legs and you feel like a little more confident that you can help set up processes and things like that, then you might want to go to a younger company and help them build their system, right? So as a just starting out, I would tell you to lean towards the more mature, and it doesn't matter what size the company is. I've been in large companies and their UX department is minuscule. I've been in big, small companies, and it was all about UX. So the size of the company itself isn't a big deal. But I wanted to touch on something you were asking about at the beginning. You were talking about how you can differentiate yourself. And something I want to tell everybody who is learning UX and to be in that is that your soft skills, such as collaboration, cooperation, lack of ego, curiosity, those types of things are your soft skills. Like, I don't know, but I am willing to learn. That is a soft skill that they are looking for. They do not want to fill a cup that's already full. They don't. If you already come in knowing everything, then you can't be trained, right? So be trainable, be open to learning new things, be curious about things, learn how to collaborate, listen to other people. Like she was saying, these are soft skills that a lot of people are not taught in the workforce. And we've all been around the egotistical people who, think they know everything, and they are afraid to share any of their work because they're, like, I already know, I don't need nobody validating me and stuff like that. But in UX, I have found that less and less, because we learn to be empathetic with each other, and we learn that it's very humbling when you find out that you're wrong over and over again. As a researcher, I get humbled every day. As like, I really think the user's going to say this, and it's like, pow, they really went a different direction than I thought. So it's really humbling, but just try to keep that. Those are some things that you can differentiate, learn differently and make yourself stand out a little bit. The tools, I know people are worrying about tools and all of that. The latest one is, Figma or Axure or that sort of thing. People are getting away from Sketch because it's so Mac dependent and things like that. But they've also gone with cloud. So it depends on the company. You're going to be limited to the tools that your company is going to give you. So just learning any of them, you can adapt. I have used Adobe XD. I've used Sketch. I've used Figma. I'm now using Axure. They're all pretty much the same, just a different space. It's like using a browser. You're going to figure it out. It's not that the tool is not the important thing. Your soft skills and your thinking process is the most important thing for getting a job. And that's what people are looking for. They want to know how you think and what gives you the fire, what's your passion. And whenever you're talking, whenever I'm in an interview, people can tell that I'm passionate about research, because they start talking about stuff and they can tell, and it comes through there. You can't hide that. So just, those are things, some of the things that make you different are something that you can't learn. You just need to, know yourself. Like she was saying, in the languages of UX, you got to learn yourself.
Yeah.
Before you can be open to others. So I hope.
So if you feel like, go ahead, Sherry. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, I hope I went on too long, but yeah.
So Larry, if you don't really know where to land, go online and study the difference between UX and UI. Yes, there are more jobs open for UX designer, and the reason for that is because most of those companies are looking for someone who can actually do the wireframes and the prototypes and design things up. But a lot of those jobs, actually, it's more than just UX designer. They're just throwing that word UX designer on there because that's what they think. What they call it. Yeah. When it comes to content design, that's where I focus, and my jobs are found in marketing departments. They're found in knowledge management, customer service departments, and that's where the content designer goes, even though the content designer is a designer. And so it depends on how the businesses are structured. And one of the most important things you need is a portfolio. So I'd encourage you to Google UX portfolios. I built mine on Google Sites. It's free. It was super easy. The hardest part is actually figuring out how you're going to write it, how you're going to tell them what the business problem was, what the constraints were, which is the limits that you had to work with, and how you thought through the process. And I encourage you to go look at a bunch of portfolios so that you can get an idea of how people are presenting things.
Yeah, that video on YouTube is a 3-hour workshop. So you can take your time in going through that and learn a lot. It gives lots of examples.
Oh, can you share that with us, or is that somewhere in the chat?
It's on our YouTube channel. I'll go get it for you.
Oh, okay, you're gonna get it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody else have any questions or comments? No? Okay, well, I am going to launch a poll. Okay, it's gonna be super easy. Let's see. Let me launch a poll. All right. So here's the first one. I have 3. Okay, so answer your experience level. Okay. Has everybody answered? All right.
Supposed
So
to click
we have
on polling?
polling. Yeah, it should have popped up on your screen.
I'm clicking on it, but nothing pops up after.
No. Okay, well, it says 8 out of 11, but
Wow.
me and Paula have it. 9. Okay.
So Larry, where do you go to learn more about UX right now? Oh, you're in school, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
my main, yeah, it's just I'm just trying to work on my project, so I don't really do a ton of, I guess, research. I do use like Dribble for reference, and I mean, of course, the program has its own Slack channel, so just like interacting, looking at other students' projects, helping them with their testing, help with my testing. But that's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, feel free to join us on our Slack channel, and you are welcome to ask questions in there. We have a pretty engaged group, and there's lots of different roles. I do know that UI is very different from UX. UX designers oftentimes are expected to do the UI as well, but it is a different, it's a different thing.
Yeah, totally different.
I'd say it's a different thing, but it's definitely very closely related. It probably depends on the particular work environment to what degree a UX designer overlaps with UI roles.
Yeah. And who is that?
That's
I'm
Kelly.
Kelly.
Oh,
Nice
hi,
to meet
Kelly.
you, Paula.
Are you working as a UXer right now?
Yeah, I'm an interaction designer at Fjord, part of Accenture.
Oh, cool. How cool. I didn't know that Accenture was doing UX.
Yeah, they have a whole digital arm.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here. Thanks. Thanks for showing up. So you are an interaction designer. How long have you been doing that?
About 4 years.
And is there any other role that you want to do, or you're just really happy right there, or how's that working out?
I think I'm a design generalist. So I definitely appreciated what you were saying about, you know, being open and reaching across different fields to really like learn how other people see the world. Because I think for somebody who has been in it for a long time, you do have to remember to take that beginner's mindset. I am interested in UX. I also do visual facilitation. My background is actually in visual design, though. So that's my comment about UX and UI being very closely related in my work.
Nice. So,
Well, let me say the results are new to UX. 5 out of the 10 people who answered, so half, 4 or 1 to 3 years, and then I guess it's Kelly who answered 4 to 6 years. So yeah, so we've got a lot of newbies.
awesome.
All
Awesome.
right.
I tripped into UX by accident. I went to CodeUp to learn how to be a web developer because I just thought it was really cool. And which country have you most interested?
There's a new poll.
So I tripped into finding out about UX because I was exploring all kinds of meetups when I was a boot camp student. I was just kind of amazed that about software programming. It just kind of blew me away in a positive way, kind of opened up the whole world to me. And so I was finding every little meetup I could go to, Python meetups and PHP meetups and WordPress meetups, and I didn't go to any hackathons, but I did volunteer for one, for a youth hackathon. And UX, what's that? And so, well, it looks techie. I went, and I fell in love that night. I've been going ever since, 4 years. I don't have a job in UX right now, but that doesn't keep me from continually learning. I ended up being a web dev for a while, freelancing, quite frankly, because technical interviews terrified me so much that I couldn't do them. Anxiety was a massive issue for me. And so I've had to take some time to work through that. And I did. Most of the time. It still comes and gets me. But yeah, so I've done website builds for the entire software development lifecycle for 3 or 4 of those. And then I got a content research and testing certificate from some people who started a school because they saw a need for UX writers. Don't see a lot of jobs for those, but they do exist. Anyway, okay, so I think
They're valuable. Oh my goodness. I could not do this without you. Okay, here are our results for the community. Go ahead.
Paula, I'd actually love to talk to you more about that if I can connect with you later.
Sure. This is Viviana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just hook up with me on Slack or LinkedIn.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're on our Slack channel, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, sure. I'd love to talk.
Okay. So
Yeah, I had a lot more content tonight about anxiety and imposter syndrome. Maybe we'll do that in another talk.
yeah.
There's so much to learn, and it's so common. It's so common and so beatable. Yeah.
So it looks like we need to do design to business and research to design discussions on language. All right.
Sounds good.
See, we're practicing UX. We're talking to our users. See? Okay. And now we have one more. And this is something we were talking about earlier, was your soft skills. Which one do you more interested in learning?
For some reason, I can't sign into the USAA Slack, which is kind of weird because in my program, like I'm currently like online in the Slack channel, but then when I try to go to USAA with the same email that I'm using, it won't let me proceed. And then it shows me like I'm already signed into other workspaces that I've joined.
Yeah, let me send me a private message in chat on what your email is, and I will send you an invitation from our Slack channel. It does that weird. It's weird. Sometimes it doesn't work the way we think it should be. So
So we're open to feedback. If this was helpful or not, I'm just completely open. This is the first presentation I've done in a long, long time.
And you did amazing.
And certainly the first one on this topic of anything in UX. My presentations in the past were on a completely different field. So I'm open to any feedback. And it's my first one on Zoom too. This is really weird. I'm used to being on a big stage with a microphone and huge sound going all out. So open to feedback.
All right, so I have 8 people who have answered the soft skills question. I just also put the join the Slack link in there, but if you still can't get in, send me your email and I will put it in invitation from Slack to you, so that way. Okay, I just sent yours, Larry. All right, so let's see what this polling. All right, looks like we need to do a talk on collaboration. So yeah, because that's it. Let me tell y'all, this collaboration is amazing because that is where I learned that I enjoy collaboration more than working by myself. And it also, like I said, it humbles you. So it's really amazing whenever you can you can work together on something, and then you work together and you're starting to bounce off ideas, and then the ideas are coming from this place and then that place, and you're like totally twisted around another way. And it's just amazing when the brains are working together. We came up with that ASS acronym between 3 people. We were just talking and we were laughing because we're like, we need to make that an acronym. And then Paula came up with the thing, so it's like a back and forth, and it's a great feeling because you feel the teamwork when you do that. It's really, really fun. So collaboration is a fun thing. It's kind of, I don't know if y'all have ever played that game, telephone or something. It's kind of, that's when it gets really bad. The communication is really bad. But if you think about working together and adding or playing that what is the game where you do the story where somebody adds a sentence and you end up making a story? Have you ever done that?
No.
Yeah, we make a story. It's like, it's not going to be what you would have written as a story, but all of you together create a story with different sentences. And it's, you think about a subject and then you add a sentence and that next person adds a sentence and all that. And that's a really cool collaboration game that you can play to see how different it's going to be. So anyway, so there's that. Thanks for taking the polls.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And thank you, Paula. Yay.
You're welcome.
And I am going to share my screen once again so that I can, gotta find where my share is. Oh, over here. Sorry, I'm running the chat and the Slack and okay. And then
Oh, okay. I see, Larry, your question. I was so focused on the presentation. What are your different roles for UX?
all right.
Yeah, Larry, what do you mean? What are the different roles for UX, UI?
I mean, I know there's like a lot out there, like general UX, UI designer, researcher.
Oh yeah, well you're talking about them right there. That's
I guess the thing is like
And
in the program.
you could be a UX developer as well.
Right. And the thing is like there's lots of roles, but it seems like they're very specialized, and I feel like, someone who's starting out, I doubt that I would end up in a specialized role immediately. So I'm not exactly sure, I guess, what what roles should I aim for? Or I guess I'm just going for anything that's general entry level or like junior position, I assume.
Yeah, and UX is more of a mindset than a role. It's the
Yeah.
mindset within the role.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be anything in tech or not tech and be UX focused. That means I'm going to think through the process of what the end user is going to be doing while I'm building it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like my portfolio does not have UX projects on it. My portfolio has real estate project on it. My portfolio has journalism in it because I have not worked on a UX specific team. But to my surprise, I've been thinking like a UXer for a very long time, and I can demonstrate that through past work. So if you
Think
have,
in process, show your process.
right, right. So if you worked at a restaurant, you can talk about how you're aware of what the user, your customers need at different times and how you introduce, on-ramp them, like, you know, how you load software and there's this onboarding process. How do you onboard your restaurant customer to their table? How do you deboard them when they pay their check? What are the special things that you do to make sure that they have an experience? And how do you adjust waiting tables based upon who's at the table? I mean, you can take waiting tables and turn it into a user experience case example.
Going to the doctor's office. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
everything is the user experience.
UX is everywhere. It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So, okay.
All right. So announcements. Does anybody have any announcements they would like to share? That could be like you got a new job, you got a new puppy, attended something recently, an event, a meetup event, a new accomplishment. Viviana you're in school, you graduated, now you've moved on to the next step.
Yay. We have 2 people who weren't here tonight because they got hired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cindy Gower is working on a project that she just loves. And Adrian's starting Monday. Why was she? There was a reason that she couldn't make it tonight. I don't think it was work. I got that.
She had to take a friend to class.
Yeah. And Mosqueda couldn't make it because she's at boot camp for UX design with no, she's not with General Assembly. She's with, I can't remember which one she went to. So she's at a boot camp tonight. So yeah, congratulations to Adrian Palmer who got hired at Dell.
Yeah, she starts next week.
Mm-hmm. And Sam is 6 weeks into his job. Yay!
We lost him.
You know, we have hard times. Getting a job is tough right now. How many interviews have you had, Sherry?
Oh my goodness, a bunch.
Yeah.
But I'm working a contract job right now, but looking for full time.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Hey guys, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a friend here who's going to be starting CodeUp, and he's kind of curious about what he should be focusing on before starting. I don't know. I kind of gave him some pointers, but wanted to ask the group. Maybe they had. I know this is too late too. He just asked, so.
Well, I went to CodeUp 5 years ago. And back then they told us to read about computer science and certain vocabulary items. They wanted us to learn about hex codes.
Okay.
And that was fascinating. The hexadecimal system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they wanted us to learn that. And I would definitely have him read up on accessibility. It will come up in the boot camp.
Okay.
It might not come up right away, but it will. And then
Get him on our Slack channel. He can talk to the other developers who've been
oh
there.
yeah, we have several CodeUp grads in our Slack channel and in our community who would be more than happy to help him out.
I even made a channel for boot camp grads.
That's right, you did just recently.
wow.
He needs to realize that when an instructor is answering a question from the class, that the answer does not necessarily apply to his work. That when they give you a problem to solve or an assignment in CodeUp in a unit, there can be 50 different ways to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And it took me months to figure that out. No one ever actually said it. I was the 5th cohort that went through. So it's important because he would answer that question over there and like, oh, okay. And I'd take notes and I'd make adjustments to my solution to answer that question. Oh, okay. I'd take notes and by the time I was done, it was a mess. Because I would have that answer mixed in with my answer and that answer mixed in with it. Didn't work. And so if you can realize that it's just this word arbitrary, really get his head wrapped around the word arbitrary because they use it a lot. And that it really means that the sky's the limit, that HTML actually is a language, CSS actually is a language. I thought they were just calling it that for fun.
Oh.
But no. Yeah, I really did. It took me about a month before I figured out, oh, wow, that acts like a verb and that acts like a noun and that acts like an adjective. It took a while to figure that out. And so if he can get his head wrapped around arbitrary, that you really can name things anything you want, and that's not going to change the way it functions. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Viviana, did you have anything?
I was gonna say that a lot of what they don't teach you in the boot camps is the data structures and the algorithms. String and array manipulation is real big. And just to make sure that one thing that they kind of drilled in our head was that as a developer, you're never gonna know everything.
Right.
And that's something that it took me a lot to accept because I'm kind of, I'm a very much so meticulous person and I am almost a perfectionist, so that it bothers me that I'm like, oh man, I don't know everything, but even the most senior developer will never know everything, and Google is your best friend. It's like one of those jobs where you can Google it and it's not frowned upon.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
like to know everything.
I totally agree with what Viviana said. I was working in an office where we had a client come in who works at Rackspace, and we did software development, and we had a client come in that works at USAA, a couple of them, and they do software development. And I said, so how do you feel about deadlines and the unknowns and the ambiguity? And she goes, oh yeah, I don't ever feel caught up. I'm like, oh, whew, it wasn't just me, right?
Yeah.
It is the way of web dev. It's why beer is served at every meetup.
And
Yeah, huh?
And when I was talking, I have a friend who's a senior React developer, and he said he worked on like this carousel for the website for like 2 months, 3 months. And they finally launched it and took it away within 3 days because nobody liked it. The users did not like it. So 3 months of his work just to get scrapped out the window. So that's something I'm going to have to
Research.
That would hurt my feelings, but I have to realize, like Sherry said, you need user research.
Yeah, it isn't about you. Exactly. And software development can be really painful.
And see, that was not just painful for that developer. It was painful for the company who paid him 2 months to build it, and now it's worthless. And so
yeah,
it's a risk mitigation is research. So,
and it's painful in content too. Even when you're working in English and it's your native language, it's still painful because everybody has an opinion about English, right?
Yeah.
or what word would work on that button. And so
Sure. Yeah.
same thing goes with English as it does with CSS and PHP and Python and all that stuff. All right, door prizes. Yay!
Hey, since you're the speaker, you get to pick a
Oh, okay.
number. Let me see. Let me do this. Here we go, participants. A number between 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, number between 1 and 8,
Between 1 and 8 or including 1 and 8?
including 1 and 8.
1.
Keith, are you here? Keith, are you still with us? Keith? No, where's that? Your mic is off. I think he's from the Ohio group.
Okay. Is this the must be present to win? Well, he is kind of present. Maybe he
He
got
is
up
sort
and
of.
walked away.
I don't know. Well, he's on our Slack. He's on
there
our
he is.
Slack channel.
No,
Huh?
he just said hello. He's in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I'm gonna get
okay.
the speaker going. You can pick someone else. No, you're the
No,
winner.
no, he's there. He's in the
You're
chat.
there. You're the winner.
His speakers are not working.
Okay, so Keith, just send me privately your email and we will send you a $25 gift card to either Amazon or Rosenfeld Media for a book. Yay! Congratulations. All right.
For y'all who don't know it, Rosenfeld Media, that's ROSENFIELD, specializes in books around information architecture, UX, UI, content.
UX.
Yeah,
UX focus. Yes.
Content design too.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're very, very good.
I love them, and I actually attended the Enterprise Experience 2020 4-day event this past week, and it was amazing. And for those who weren't here when I started out, I'm just kind of showing the screen. Can you still see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Rosenfeld, I'm showing you the books that are in here. I have a few on my desk. A lot of great stuff. But if you don't want a book, then you can do Amazon. I had someone who won the last month, and they were excited because they let me know they bought a chair with it. So.
Oh gosh.
Anyway, so it's great stuff. So congratulations, Keith. So next month we are having Jen Blatz. She's from Dallas, and Larry is from that group, right?
Yeah, DFW.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we have had a lot of new members come in and from her because she is advertising her talk in October. And it's on cognitive bias. And I actually got to sit through this when she gave this talk to the San Diego meetup. And it is an amazing walk through psychology. It's just amazing because you learn about why you think the way you do. There's like, oh, that makes so much sense now. So it's really fascinating. And we have to be aware of these biases when you're doing research and UX design so that you're not contaminating the results. You know, just think of it as a science. You don't want to contaminate the results. You don't want to contaminate the participants or give them thoughts or leading things consciously or unconsciously. So being aware of what those cognitive biases are very important. And she gives a great talk, and it's a lot of fun to listen to her too. So please come to that if you can. And we also have several events that are, scheduled out through January. And it's pretty amazing. So, and then in the closing, I just want to invite anyone to share some advice or inspiring quote that you've heard or that you use regularly to share with the rest. Think of something.
I heard a quote today from a guy talking about imposter syndrome. He used to be an actor and a producer and a screenwriter. Doussat, Doussat. The link to this podcast will be in the email that comes out from Meetup. And he said, success failure is failing in acting. Failing failure is failing in not acting. So, in other words, fail forward.
Yeah.
So if we get stagnant and stay stuck, yeah. I just thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and you've been sharing some of the quotes that we got from our talk on our social media pages. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
failure is not.
Failure is not a real thing. Failure is feedback, and that's by a Code Up graduate.
No, that was from.
Yeah, that's Reynolds,
Jacob.
David Reynolds.
Oh,
No,
okay.
that was
Oh, David Reynolds. Okay.
Yeah, definitely him. And then Jake was something about learn what you need to do your job, and then learn a little bit more about other people's jobs around you. That will really help with imposter syndrome. Just really, get to it.
Oh, yeah.
Learn what is relevant to your job now, today. Get to it, and just conquer it. And it really helps the imposter syndrome. What did Katie say? She said,
I don't remember.
it's on our social
media
Yeah.
pages.
Yeah, there's some really cool quotes.
Add the YouTube to our Connect with Us page.
Should I make a picture for the acronym? Oh dear.
Sure, you take a picture of everybody's name.
Yeah. Hey, let's get a screenshot of everybody. If everybody will show their faces, if they can. Just for fun.
There's Sam.
No, I don't think we're gonna get everybody. It's okay.
There's Vivi.
Oh, hey Vivian.
Gosh.
Zoe.
Hey Zoe. And we'll make sure the chat's gone. Let's see, close. Yeah.
Roland.
The goat is cute. It's okay.
Yeah, last time we were making really bad jokes.
It's okay if we have a few black spots.
He's the greatest of all time.
All right. Are we ready?
Sure.
Okay. Everybody wave. Are you taking the photo?
I
Sherry?
thought you were.
No, you are.
Okay. All right, I got it.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, y'all, for putting up with us.
Yeah. All right. I got 3 or 4 people here in Slack now. Yay. Y'all can connect with each other, Viviana, and you can reach out to other people, and Vivi's already on there. But welcome, and Sam, it's good to see your face again.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
good to
And-
see you.
Yeah. And so, what?
I said I sure look forward to being able to do this in person again someday.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All right.
Okay.
Well, everyone for coming and participating, and send me your feedback on Slack, or you can shoot me an email. Let me put that in there real quick. And I'm open to negative feedback, positive feedback, just whatever. If there was something that you would have liked to have heard more about, let me know.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Paula.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care, everyone.
Right.